Once, there was a beggar who lived at a busy city train station. Every day, he filled his stomach by asking passengers for alms as they hurried past. One day, while begging, he noticed a tall man in a suit walking by. The beggar thought to himself, "He looks very rich. Maybe if I ask him, he'll give me a good amount." So, he quickly approached the man. The tall man stopped, looked at him, and asked, "You're always begging, but do you ever give anything to anyone?" The beggar was surprised. He looked down and said softly, "Sir, I'm a beggar. I don't have anything to give. I only ask." The man shook his head and replied, "If you can't give anything, you have no right to ask. I'm a businessman. I believe in trade. If you have something to give me, only then can I give you something in return." After saying this, the man boarded his train and left. The beggar stood there silently, those words echoing in his mind. They sank deep into his heart. He thought, "Maybe I don't get much, because I never give anything in return. But what can a beggar possibly give?" He thought for a long time, and finally made a decision. From that day onward, he would not just ask, he would give something too. But what could he give? 2 days passed, and he still didn't have an answer. On the third day, while sitting near the station, he noticed some flowers blooming by the tracks. And suddenly, a thought struck him. Why not give flowers to the people who give me alms? He smiled for the first time in a long while. That day, he picked a few flowers and began begging as usual. Whenever someone gave him money, he handed them a flower in return. People were pleasantly surprised. They smiled, accepted the flowers, and even gave him more money than before. Soon, this became his daily routine. He collected flowers every morning and offered them to people in exchange for alms. To his amazement, more and more people began giving. He realized something powerful. When he had flowers to give, people gave generously. But when he ran out of flowers, no one gave him anything. One day, he saw the same tall man again, stepping off the train. The beggar ran toward him and said with a bright smile, "Sir, today, I have something to give you. Please give me alms, and I'll give you a flower in return." The tall man smiled warmly and handed him some money. The beggar gave him a flower and said proudly, "Now, sir, I'm a businessman just like you." The man nodded and said, "Yes, today you truly are." The beggar felt a warmth inside his heart, a joy he had never known before. He looked up at the sky and shouted, "I'm not a beggar anymore. I'm a businessman." People nearby looked at him and thought he'd gone mad. But inside, he had found something priceless purpose. From the next day onward, the beggar was never seen at the station again. 6 months later, at the same train station, 2 men in suits met while boarding a train. They greeted each other politely. One of them asked, "Do you remember me?" The other replied, "No, I don't think we've met before." The first man smiled and said softly, "Oh, we've met twice before." The second man looked confused. "When?" he asked. The first man explained, "The first time, I was a beggar, lost and hopeless. The second time, I sold you a flower. And today, I'm traveling for my flower business." The tall man's eyes widened in surprise. He smiled and said, "Yes, I remember now. You were that beggar at the station. What happened after that?" The man replied with pride, "You once told me, we only receive when we give. I lived by that rule. I started selling flowers near the station, and people loved them. My flowers were simple, but they made people smile. And that smile built my business." Both men smiled as the train began to move, talking about life, business, and the power of giving. Moral of the story: we receive only when we give. The beggar changed his life not by luck, but by changing his thinking. If we see ourselves as small and powerless, we'll remain that way. But if we choose to see ourselves as capable, valuable, and deserving, success will begin to follow. Because every great change begins in the mind.